Okay. Um, Let me see.
So, Eddie, I'm fine if we actually don't pull up the seven line prayer, which I may do partway through. So don't feel like you've got to race to do that.
Okay.
We can just let that be.
Okay.
We'll take that piece off. So,
All right. So I'm gonna make sure this is it okay to play the ads like
yep,
now?
if you'd like
Okay.
to do the introduction, like
Okay.
usual, just a short, reminder of what's coming up.
Okay. I can do it. I don't do it. Are people expecting, I think, on time or 5 minutes?
Uh, I think you can start as long as you're ready. I
Okay.
am ready.
Okay.
And you can start to let folks in, and then when you're ready, just do a brief welcome, and yeah, and then I'll
All right.
dive in. So,
Sounds great. I will let them in now. Good morning and welcome. I'll give a few minutes for folks to trickle in, or a couple of seconds anyway. Okay. Once again, welcome. We have some events coming up soon. The first one is this, I guess, coming Saturday, the 21st of September. It's a day-long virtual retreat. I guess it'll be one of the last day-long virtual retreats, not the last. And we also have the fall retreat that is coming up on October 27th. That is going to be at the Wisdom House in Litchfield, Connecticut. And nope, forget about that one. I got the wrong video up. Sorry about that. Um, so the fall retreat is going to be October 27th through November 1st. We hope you all could make it. And I guess without further ado, I will turn it over to Suzanne.
good. Well, it's morning here in New England. It's a beautiful morning, actually. I'm Suzanne, and welcome. Give it a minute here. I see people are still sort of coming in from the waiting room. And Eddie, if you want to unpin, if you will, the
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Okay, no, sorry. Did
no,
not realize this was that on.
all good. And I'm okay if we leave this in gallery view for
Okay.
the morning for this
Okay.
practice.
Is that the current setting?
No, I've got
Okay.
gallery view, and hope maybe others do as well, which is lovely to see many faces that are familiar to me. So again, welcome. So I'm Suzanne. It's good to see you this morning. Again, morning here, at least in New England. So what I wanted to share with you today, I wanted to pick up a gem in my view that Lama Surya left on the table, so to speak, at last Sunday's meditation town hall. And he made this quick reference to shanti, which is a Sanskrit word, which means, in his translation, is patient forbearance, tolerance. And I thought what I'd do is take a few minutes and pick up on that gem he left us, kind of look at a few facets of it, see how it might sit in a few settings. And I think it is really a rich opportunity to kind of practice with patient forbearance in the current climate. So when he offered up this reference to Shanti, to patient forbearance, this is one of the transcendental virtues, if you will, one of the guiding principles of how we can move through the world. And he even suggested, Surya even suggested that patience forbearance may be one of the most important virtues to practice. And he is not alone in suggesting that. Marpa, Milarepa's teacher, agreed. And as someone who has been practicing some form of Buddhist tradition for over probably 25 years now, and who works in local government and has for over 20 years, I agree. This is a fundamental and critically important practice. Patience, tolerance, kindly acceptance. And one of the principal reasons you will find this emphasized so much is that really patient forbearance, that tolerance, it's our alternative, it's our antidote to that anger and irritation that cuts us off from others. And, I've been studying a long time within various traditions. And one of the sort of basic texts where we talk about these transcendental virtues, these practices of living the good life, comes from this classic text called the Bodhicharya Vitara by Shantideva. And Shantideva starts right off with this chapter on Shanti and talks about why patience is so important to kind of not having us fall into that anger trap, that self and other trap, that walking away from that ultimate reality. So the first two lines of Shantideva's teaching, I'll paraphrase slightly: the worship of the Buddhas, generosity, and good conduct performed throughout thousands of aeons. Hatred destroys it all. That's big. The second verse: there is no evil equal to hatred, and no spiritual practice equal to forbearance. Therefore, one should develop forbearance by various means with great effort. Serious stuff. Rich, rich practice. And so that's why I thought we ought to at least take a moment from that kind of very short statement that Surya gave at the last meditation town hall and tease it out a little bit and kind of let it soak in, because I think it is so important and is such a great means of practice. And Surya does a lovely job in his book, Buddha is as Buddha does. He has a lovely chapter on patient forbearance. And you'll see some of the same reliance upon and quotes from Shantideva, the great practitioner of Mahayana Buddhism. And Surya kind of sets out sort of the outer practice of patient forbearance, and then the inner practice. And so in our outer practice, I kind of think of this as the patient, anger, irritation, the us, them, kind of arising of feeling as what do you do with it once it's manifested in your space, right? So there's the outer practice of what am I going to do when all of this arises? And then there's the inner practice, which is part of what we do every week here as we're looking to be in that luscious, luscious state of open awareness where all the boundaries between self and other dissolve, when we are right here, right now, with the naked reality and accepting everything that is. I don't know about you, but I know with me, there are lovely moments of where it is so easy, right? Because we're in that state of awareness and, all kinds of conditions could be happening with, around us. And it's like, all good. But then there are moments in one's life when that irritation does arrive. So kind of having an understanding of both are true. Sometimes we're in that beautiful state and of that inner kind of working of being. And I thought Surya did a lovely job grabbing a few quotes of why when we practice as we do, just being in the moment, everything just as it is, and all of the boundaries dissolving, and that open awareness to the naked reality of what is, that it almost becomes moot. You don't have a practice of patience. And he has this lovely quote, a couple of lovely quotes from his, again, from the Buddha is as Buddha does in his chapter on Shanti. And so he has this quote from Tulku Thubten Rinpoche, what it means when patience on that inner level of being. Patience, he tells us, here's the quote, is being in the natural state of mind, being in this very moment. Then we don't have to try to be patient or react to any conditions. That is patience. Patience is also the understanding of courage. The Buddha says to understand the nature of reality, the great shunyata, the emptiness or absence of separate forms, one has to have unique patience or great patience. Patience means fearless courage to understand, egoless wisdom. This is a threatening subject to comprehend, the nature of reality, because the ego has to die. Concept has to die. And Surya goes on to say, as we work to develop this ideal inner state, we draw support from the truth of our secret, innermost, peaceful Buddha nature, right? It's practice we're always doing with Surya. Here we let go of everything selfish and place our trust in the universe, in the fact that everything is already fine, at rest. And then he has this other lovely quote from Lao Tzu. The master sees things as they are, without trying to control them. She lets them go their own way and resides at the center of the circle. So that, I think, is impetus to do some practice. And so we'll do our regular practice. But I'm going to be mindful of the time, because what I'd like to do is we'll do our practice working on the inner, seeing reality, dropping the boundaries, letting everything just be. And then I'm saving some time at the end so we can talk about, well, what happens when we're not in this lovely space? And irritation, or that closing down of connection with others, right? Happens, and just some practical sort of thoughts in terms of how we can work in that other space and some other tools in the toolbox, right? So that's where I'm headed today. So ring the bell. I'm going to chant the 7-line prayer. I'm asked Eddie not to bring it up, just so you can kind of sit and kind of dive right in rather than be distracted by what's happening on the screen. We'll do our practice. And then when we come out of that, I'll save some time and we'll talk a little bit more about patience and forbearance. Hopefully you can hear the bell. And I just love inviting the lineage. You can't see it because I blurred it out because my room's kind of a mess, but there's kind of like this refuge tree behind me. And when I do the 7-line prayer, or frankly, any prayer, the lineage comes and all of those who've benefited me and helped me on the path. So bring whomever and whatever is helpful to you in this practice. 홍orjen율진육장삼 배막에서동 폴라 배마중내 제수드락 거룩한드망 보고 계기제수다 드루키 진질랍지식수소 구루 페마스리홍 오마홍 벤자구루 페마스리홍 오마홍 벤자구루 페마스리홍 오마홍 벤자구루 페마스리홍. So with the lineage, just sit. This body, this breath, this moment only moment. Invitation to really settle into your body, into the seat. Let the earth hold you. No reason to do it alone. I love when I'm settling in to take those nice 3 deep breaths. So if that's helpful to you, feel free. Invitation. Relaxing into this moment. This body, this breath. Nothing to push away, nothing to cling on to, nothing to complicate or solve. No one to be in this moment. How sweet. And if you're having any trouble kind of relaxing into the lusciousness of now and just being, I find that bringing my attention low into the body, really into the seat, can be really helpful just to ground in the moment. And then at some point, you just don't need that effort anymore. That focus. Resting. Natural body, natural breath. Nothing to do in this moment. No one to be in this moment. Just resting in that naked awareness. Or not resting in naked awareness and not judging it. in which case, invitation to relax into that breathing body. Find your seat and be content. Eyes open, heart open, pores of the skin open. Whatever you do, don't work too hard. This is much more like playing with the kitten or the puppy. Just relaxing into the moment without too much expectation of good behavior. So we're in this lovely state of awareness. How could we be anything but patient? There's no place for anger or irritation. My suffering is your suffering, all dissolving. And here we get to let go of all those concepts and be comfortable with the not knowing. Not knowing whether what we've deemed bad or unpleasant might unfold something entirely beautiful or unexpected. So we let go of the labels here, the concepts, and just be. Resting. All good, just as it is. So like I said, I've been practicing for a long time in a variety of traditions, and I have a number of tools in my toolkit, so to speak, for kind of moving through life in a way that uh, makes me a happier, nicer to be with, and I think much more effective, particularly uh, in my work, which is for local government. And I I love this Dzogchen practice. When I first discovered Lama Surya, I'm like, oh, I've been kind of doing part of this practice for a long time. um, sort of working with some more traditional practices of mindfulness and metabhavna and um, some just sitting, but finding that I was often in this space that we've just been practicing. And so it was like, now I begin to have a greater understanding of how all these pieces come together. And I've always loved kind of working from what I call the inside out. I'm for a lawyer in local government of all things, as well as a manager. Uh, it's kind of amusing that I am not a rule follower. Like I generally, like it's kind of entertaining the fact that I don't like rules, given the milieu in which I practice and work. And so being able to kind of work internally so that I don't have to conform my conduct, my feelings, that my feelings are naturally to be caring and patient rather than, oh, impatience has arisen, and then trying to manage it after the fact. Because I just, for me, works a lot better that way. Now, ideally, most of us need both pieces, right? You need the kind of boundaries of this is what your conduct should conform to, because otherwise you get a lot of bad consequences from that, right? You start picking a harsh speech and, things go down the rabbit hole and not so good. Basic karma, or, you don't even need a fancy word for it. All you just need to know is, you start getting in a really heated conversation, particularly in local government, and it may not end well, right? So, or with your children, never mind. So I've been really mindful and attentive over the years to kind of work on that internal piece so that I don't have as much irritation and intolerance arising in my space of being. And so, but mindful that sometimes it is going to arise. So I wanted to take these last kind of 12 minutes or whatever we have left, just to kind of throw out some pieces that I have found useful. And I think my children would tell you have been useful for me as a parent, and certainly my workmates and Sangha mates in my various communities I've been in. So first off, as I'm sure most of you know, just being aware, right? Aware of when that irritation, when that anger, when that intolerance is starting to arise, right? It's mindful of that, oh, this state of being is arising, which is some level of irritation. When my kids were young, that was kind of a common intersection point, right? And learning over time how to give that space and pause. Here it is, and here it is arising. And what I learned over time, and what I've been able to share over time, particularly with folks, is it's very easy to say, "Ooh, Suzanne, that's bad that arose," right? And kind of you've added now on another layer of suffering and contraction into that judgment in your head, as opposed to this state has arisen, and wrapping that in kindness in the breathing body and relaxing. Then what opens up is that opportunity to be creative, to step back, to de-escalate. And it's a bit of a magic if you can not judge, right? Because that's what we've just been doing, not judging, just being. It has arisen, and we're not acting on it with the, you know, wicked mother. It's that it's arisen, and it's painful, right? Suffering because conditions aren't as we want. The kid has not put on their clothes in time to get you and them out to school and work. Really painful. or your employee has not given you what they were supposed to give you by noon on Tuesday. Right? So instead of beating yourself up that has arisen, breathe into it with kindness. It's amazing what you can do with the body and the breath, right? It just opens up then the possibility of how you might more creatively want to respond. So instead of kind of furthering that us, them, or that distance from the reality is it's not as you like it at the moment, and it's unpleasant. I'm going to be late for work. You're going to be late for school, or this report is going to be late to my boss. This is the unpleasantness, right? But if we can hold that tenderly, because we're holding our own suffering tenderly, chances are there's suffering on the other side, right? And it just opens up that space for tenderness. And really the key to that, I think, is just not falling into that trap of judgment or pushing away. Breath with a little bit of kindness. And that kind of opens up that creative space, and that acceptance of the reality is not as you want it in the moment, right? Just is. And so that goes to kind of two practices that I think help with that. It has arisen, and staying in that kindly, not pushing away space. One is learning to just sit with a bit of discomfort. Now, those of you who've been on retreat, here's my advocacy for go on retreat. Got one coming up. Or if October doesn't work, there are other opportunities for this. One of the benefits of sitting on retreat is you're in a container, and that container may have things that are not comfortable for you, whether it's the food, the sleeping arrangements, you're sitting more often, you get bored, there's a speaker you don't really connect with, you name it, and discomforts are going to arise. And you've got a place to kind of sit with that and be uncomfortable. Probably, for those of you who've been on town hall and kind of noticed backgrounds, I'm often sitting outside. Not today, obviously. Being okay with the fact, a fly has landed, a beetle, an ant is crawling on my leg. And just kind of, that's not quite comfortable, but actually, I don't actually need to respond to that. Now, I am allergic to bee stings. I might want to be mindful and take appropriate measures if I've managed to somehow put myself in some space where there are bees. But leaving that aside, there's that okay with a little bit of discomfort. Or always changing the temperature. It's shocking to me how often people complain about the temperature in the office. Like, in the broad range of things, it is very comfortable. Some days it's a little cooler, some days it's a little warmer. And it's like, wow, okay, there's a lot of energy behind that. Well, it's too warm in here today, or it's too cold in here today. And just kind of being able to be, it may not be my preferred temperature, but there's actually a pretty broad range of, I can actually be perfectly okay doing what I need to do to take care of people today in that range of temperature, and being a little uncomfortable because it's not my perfect temperature, right? So kind of learning to be with a little bit of discomfort, to eat what's actually in your refrigerator rather than going out and buying something you want, right? So there's little little choices you can make. But I love going on retreat in kind of that container, because you get to bump up into all your preferences and live with a little bit of discomfort and feeling how that can, oh, it's actually perfectly manageable, right? And so it just kind of helps you then when you're out in your other spaces in your work and life. The second piece that I have found helpful over the years, and many have found helpful, is a meditation practice called metta bhavana. And it's a kind of a formal, more structured, that's the word I'm looking for, a more structured practice that I spent many years working with. And it's for the development of loving kindness. And there are many lovely teachers, Sharon Salzberg and others who are beautiful leaders of and practitioners of this loving kindness meditation. And what I found over the years is that if I, and there's an invitation coming at the very end of this mindful time. If you find that one person or is kind of annoying you in particular and kind of leading you into that space of not forbearance, not patience, so impatient, less tolerant, the anger starts to arrive. It's a lovely practice for sort of focusing on that one person who tends to kind of push your buttons. So my kids were in it often. Okay, it's a 5-stage practice. And what's important is you start with yourself, right? Because going back to we all have trouble dealing with conditions that are not what we'd like them to be. So it's learning to really hold yourself in kindness and well-wishing. The second stage happens to involve, you kind of get used to being friendly with a friend, so to speak, and then people you don't know. But the fourth stage of that metta bhavana practice, because it's typically a 5-stage practice, is someone who irritates you or angers you. And when I first learned the practice, I was in private law practice at the time, and I was headed towards trial. And I had a particular lawyer who kept tweaking me off. And so I thought, well, I'm not sure about this new practice I'm learning, but I'll put this lawyer in that we call it the fourth stage, the enemy stage, someone who irritates you. And I did that for about a week, practiced every day, put that person in the fourth stage. And I'm like, darn it, if this practice is not effective. Because in that practice, you're learning to recognize that person who is irritating you wants to be happy. They want to be free from suffering. They don't want their kids to have cancer. They don't want cancer. They're trying to be comfortable and free from fear. And when you can start seeing that those people who are kind of those people who are pushing your buttons are just like you, and they are suffering, changes your whole relationship. Still doing lawyering work, still litigating, but without my energy of anger or irritation. Huge. So those are two things that I would suggest. If there's a space that, my invitation in the minute I have left is between now and either your day-long retreat, if you're doing that next Saturday, or between now and the next Sunday town hall. Take the week and kind of pay attention and see what kind of irritates you, who angers you, where do you lose your patience, and just kind of be aware of that. And that might tell you then how you might want to work with those conditions so you're less triggered, so that when people walk into my office and it happens that they're angry, because that's what happens in my world, I see their suffering and I see it almost immediately. And that means I don't even have to reach for patience, because there's a part of me that's already recognizing that I may still be saying no to them in terms of what has gotten them angry, but there's a level of communication and I can hear them because I can hear their suffering. And it really does transform things. And certainly it helps in family life and our friends. So mindful of the time. And again, invitation. I do think this patient forbearance is a practice we all could spend some more time with, particularly in this current environment that we have. And I would encourage you all to make that real in your own hearts, in your own practice. So, and let's dedicate the merits to all beings. And I thank you for practicing with me today. Very happy.
Thank you, Suzanne. I just wanted to call out before we close the links to the donation as well as the day-long and virtual, or excuse me, the virtual retreat and the in-person retreat. So thank you again. Hope everyone has a wonderful week.